quite funny. It was like, okay. But yeah, I wonder whether there's some sort of premium you can get from having, obviously the kilt's important for your clan and all the rest of it, but how often do you wear it aside from the formal events, marriages, weddings and stuff like that? You should really bust it out more regularly, I guess, but it'd be weird to do that, wouldn't it?
Well, as I said, I've got three different Gordon tartans, and they're all for different occasions. So one's a dress Gordon, one's a hunting Gordon, and one's called the Red Gordon, but I don't really know what that's for.
No.
But no, I was wearing a big thick tartan kilt abroad for events and things like that. I wouldn't do it in London or New York, but somewhere like Amsterdam or somewhere, absolutely, people love it. So, but then I realized it was too heavy, so that's why I bought the Spider-Man kilt.
Yeah, that's it, and that's the cheapo. Feels horrible, but has a laugh factor. Yeah, I get it. It's like those business suits you can buy that are basically comedy suits that are completely unwearable in real life. But if you wore it for an event, if you're emceeing something, it might actually be quite cool. Anyway, we are live. We're live, everybody. So welcome to Brainfood Live On Air. It's episode 58. Welcome, everybody, to the bank holiday special. We weren't actually going to do this show because it is a bank holiday in the UK, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to enjoy this. However, what the hell's the difference between a bank holiday and any other day these days? So we thought we might as well do this show, particularly as it's an important one with regards to recruiter redundancy, recruiting unemployment, and those types of things. So this show is really all about what should recruiters be doing at this point if you've been put on furlough, made redundant, or fear you might be in an income insecure environment. Let's throw some ideas together and put some resources out there and see how we can help. Anyway, as we always do, a bit of housekeeping before we kick off. I've actually got some new tech implemented, so this is not going to work. However, you're going to have to help me test it, folks. What I need everyone to do, if you're on LinkedIn Live right now, which I think I might actually be banned on there at this point, I'm banned everywhere. But I'm on LinkedIn and it's actually going, can you please just comment on the chats, on just below the video, say, Hung, I can hear you. I've implemented a chat thing, which basically allows me to see those comments. And I think I might be able to respond to you for the first time. So if you see this on LinkedIn, just say, hi, Hung, I can hear you. Go ahead, get on with the show. Facebook, sorry, I did not promote this last week. Basically failed to press go live. We should be live in the Facebook group now. So if you can see this show and it's okay, just comment on there and say, hey, I can hear you. Of course, we're on Periscope, so please retweet that. And on Crowdcast, I think you can hear me, everyone. Is that right? Yes, I think you can. Okay. Yeah, people can hear me. That's all good. All right, fantastic stuff. Okay, let's get on with it, Adam. Before we dive into the meat of this and bring some more interesting people onto the show to talk us through, let's talk about Brainfood last week. Did you read it? What did you find interesting?
Yep, I did read it, as always. And yeah, it was loads of great things in there. But let's talk first about the one that not so much because of the actual content, but because of what it actually did to your email. Right. Why are restaurants so fucked? That was, yes. I think, the one that got recruiting Brainfood banned by various different employer inboxes. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's it for profanity. And of course, I should have known this. So I should have blanked it out. But it also surprised me as well, because you got to think that in the modern day, do people really give a damn about a few swear words, particularly when it's in context? I mean, it's not gratuitous. The guy wrote a brilliant post. I've just shared it, by the way. It was a German kebab owner, and he was basically high-end kebabs. He was doing all of this hipster kebab type of business. Obviously, he's fucked, and that's what he said. Obviously, post-COVID, in the COVID environment, he is fucked, and that's what he said. And that's the title of his piece. And I sent it out there within Recruiting Brainfood, obviously, and I just got a bunch of bounce back saying, "Hey, listen, we can't deliver it for a profanity filter and all this type of stuff." And I guess there are still very paternalistic IT systems and company cultures that basically would screen out messaging based on terminology. And it's kind of weird because sometimes maybe that's an important message. I mean, obviously this was just a bit of brain food, right? But what if you had a very serious scenario that a friend of yours or a partner or something really needed to emphasize a message to you, and they used the F word, you know, and your screening system says you can't use that. I mean, I would say you got a right to have a major problem if that led to some sort of error, you know. So anyway,
well, that's the main use of the asterisk, isn't it?
Well, I mean, maybe I should have asterisked it out, but there was actually a problem with it the week before, because there was another one with an ampersand in. They replaced the U with an ampersand, and it just screwed up a lot of the tech that we're doing to scrape the online version of it, because it couldn't interpret it as a word. It thought it was a different thing and all this type of stuff. So I don't typically default to putting special characters into words if I can avoid it. And I definitely don't edit the titles. Particularly if this guy wanted to call it this way, I've got to make the editorial judgment to present it. And then I think it's up to the person to read it or not. You know, if you're going to be offended by that, then I totally get it. I'm sorry, but don't read it if that's the case. But I would imagine that the number of people that might be upset with that word right now in context in this type of article is got to be minimal. So anyway,
I think it's just business standards in large organizations. You're simply not allowed to swear. You're not allowed to swear in meetings, and you're not allowed to swear in email. You could be sending somebody, you could be berating somebody by email or on Slack or something like that, and causing a load of offense if you're allowed to send those words.
I would argue that I totally agree with this, and we have to say that gratuitous behavior is not right, and actually tone is more important than the words themselves. I think we find that you can be super polite, but you can be very acidic in your tone and very vindictive. And very passive aggressive and all this type of stuff. And actually, I think that's much more damaging than a throwaway comment like in this case. So yeah, I see what your point is, but I don't think those two things necessarily map together as tightly as they once did. Maybe 30 years ago, the F word would always be used in this way, where it was a gratuitous attack on someone. But these days it's throwaway, and the meaning and connotations of words change, so it should be fine. But anyway, Citrix, screen me out.
Those companies that have banned your email from getting in because of that, that's the companies where people go to work in suits and ties.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, it was a Citrix system, and it was a Microsoft email sort of stack. I saw the data on the bounce back email. And yeah, well, there you go. I mean, that's the type of business that people work in, which tells us a lot, actually, because I'm a bit distant from those types of cultures. But there are loads of companies of that type, so I get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a great post. You should read it. It's fantastic breakdown on food retail and why we all need to pay more for our food. What else was interesting, Adam?
Well, I liked aspects of the back to the office playbook, or the back to work playbook, Josh Berson's thing.
Okay, aspects. So, tell me about the aspects. You didn't like some of it?
Well, I'll tell you what I did like. I did like that grid of business implications. So what's going to happen in terms of, like, companies are going to be spending money on completely different things. In fact, they're going to be spending less money on a lot of things. So there's going to be a lot less business. There's going to be a lot less business travel than there ever has been. There's going to be a lot more talking on video and things like that. There's going to be a lot more moving a lot of general business things to digital formats. I'm not sure the manufacturing environment is necessarily the right one to choose as a model for everybody else there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Because lots of people are in manufacturing, and it doesn't apply that we're going to end up doing a lot of the things that a meat packer might do, or an assembly worker would do. But
less and less humans, in 20 years' time, not that many humans are going to be working in manufacturing. They're going to be administering manufacturing, but they're not going to be actually working in factories and things like that. We've got robots doing a lot of in Amazon warehouses. Robots are doing those jobs. So there's not that many people needed to assemble a car today.
No,
the jobs at Volkswagen are all around they're all tech jobs.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it was the right industry to choose.
Yeah, the wrong model to say that, because I think you're right. Manufacturing is going to obviously go much more robotic. The kind of the unit of analysis is basically the number of robot worker units compared to the number of workers, and you can see that ratio just shoot up. I mean, obviously it will do, because robots aren't going to get sick. They're going to keep going. If you had a completely automated factory, that would never stop. There's no reason for it to stop.
Yeah.
But if you could lock down, you have to really completely close your business. So anyway, Josh Person, always worth a read. Please read that post. Follow Josh. Obviously, it's something you have to do in this business. Okay, what else is interesting, Adam?
Well, I really, as an ongoing student of language, I really loved the article about conversation design, with especially around, and also being a student of, I mean, for me, it's much more about like email communication and text message communication and things like that. And this article, is a lot about chatbots and that type of thing. Just fascinating the way we're getting better, and technology is getting better and better at really mimicking humans. We talk about people not going to be working in factories in the near future. This is just another progressive. It's just progress, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very interesting, and I kind of looked at this because I basically wrote a chatbot. I did a bit of chatbot conversation writing with the Recruiting Brainfood chatbot, which is kind of the lead for that. Which, by the way, if people want to have a go of this, you can go ahead and get on WhatsApp and just simply say hello to the recruiting sort of chatbot here, and it will go ahead and do that. So let me just cut and paste this in. It's free to use. It's not entirely perfect. Obviously, it's not perfect. Hung Lee product, but it's basically it's usable. You can basically, it's a content chatbot. You can interrogate it to get information about brain food content or brain food experts. So if you want to figure out who the hell you want to follow an AI or whatever, this thing will help you do that without you having to speak to me. Not that I don't want to speak to you, but I may not be able to respond to you. Definitely not as fast as this guy can. Check out the chat bot. Anyway, I try to do some conversational writing on there. Man, it's hard because you're basically doing edge cases all the time, and you're trying to figure out, oh, what if this person decides to say this instead of that? How do I respond? And you realize there's an infinite number of ways in which this person can respond. And so you, as a conversational designer, you actually have to try and funnel this person into closed responses in order for you to actually get a proper response. Because what you don't want to do is end up in a situation where you say, oh, I don't understand. That's where you fail as a conversational designer, and where the user would be very frustrated if they had a response and the bot didn't respond, give you a response, I don't understand. You'd hate that thing. And I ended up just giving people menus. So it's forget about having dialogue with people. Just serve people menus. Choose 1 to 10. Great. From there, you choose 1 to 3. From there, choose 1 or 2 or whatever or more, and then do it that way. And it became much more easy to write. So it's almost like a bit of funneling. It kind of felt like I was trying to funnel a person through a certain journey. So the UX was controlled. It wasn't like randomly exploring a universe. It was like literally putting them through a very, very clear pipeline. Very interesting. I'm going to do another article this week on how writing chatbots improves your copywriting. So Adam, you'd be interested in that as well. Because I think, again, it's conversational content. Mitch Sullivan, and if you remember, we had a chat with him earlier this year with Katrina Kibben. Brilliant show, by the way. And they were talking about this style of writing. Conversational marketing is the way forward. It's not about writing amazing pitches. It's about writing as you speak and doing so in such a way people want to speak to you. And that's how you do great content. That's how you get the engagement. So anyway, we'll probably revisit that. Mitch needs to come back on. He's a popular guy. Going on. Anything else before we bring our guests on and talk about how we help recruiters get jobs, Adam? Yeah,
I've got one more quick brain food one, and then I just wanted to ask you a really quick question before we brought our guests on. So the quick it's kind of related to what the guests are coming on to talk about. But the quick last bit of brain food that I wanted to mention was Sprout Social's update on the best times to be posting on social media.
Right.
I
You disagree?
Well, no, it's not that I disagree. I just thought it wasn't that useful because it was really random. It was like for LinkedIn, the best time to post, the best times, the 2020 up until now, and then it overlaid. Okay, and since COVID-19, here's what's changed. And it was like 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, 11 p.m. on a Thursday. It wasn't. There was no real pattern to it. So I just don't know if they had enough data. I don't know. The LinkedIn one, certainly. I didn't actually look at the Instagram things and whatever. I'm not on Instagram, but on LinkedIn, I didn't really find it that useful. I was disappointed.
Yep, fair enough. And other people challenge it as well. I remember Tristan Reville sort of giving it a go. I mean, his testing was, I think he'd admit it wasn't particularly, it didn't have a huge amount of data. You just give it a go, see what happened.
Yeah.
The truth is, I think LinkedIn has also at the same time constantly changing their algorithms anyway. So it's hard to do like a time-based comparison as to when best time to post is. Just for sure, I can tell you that LinkedIn, my engagement views on LinkedIn have completely collapsed over the last couple of weeks. And that I don't think is entirely related to COVID-19. I think it is kind of a rejigging of the system. Like, for instance, I posted something this morning, it only had 1,500 views. Now, I can't remember the last time I posted something that hit that lower number. I mean, I can guarantee something at least into the 5, 6, 7,000 at least. So this was unusual. Like I say, bank holiday, COVID-19, all those kind of factors in there. But I also think maybe LinkedIn has tweaked the algorithm a little bit, or potentially targeted Hung Lee. Who knows? They're entitled to do that. Oleg me out. That could happen. So who knows? But yeah, difficult to do a temporal kind of, hey, listen, in 2021, 2020 looks like this, 2019 looks like that, because the algorithmic changes are not tracked. They're not public. It's hard to figure out exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. What's the question, man?
I was talking to a TA leader yesterday, works for a global tech consulting business. And we were talking about, the sort of people getting back to work and people being furloughed and people potentially going to be made redundant and things like that. And we came to a conclusion about the UK, which is, actually, although the UK is in a worse scenario than pretty much every other country in the world when it comes to cases and fatalities, actually from an economical perspective, the UK could be better placed than a lot of other countries because we're not really a manufacturing country anymore. You look at the FTSE 100, there's a whole bunch of FTSE 100 companies that make nothing. We're a real knowledge economy, more so than any other European country. And we design things, and we possibly are slightly better positioned to come out of this awful situation in a better way than some other countries. That's a question.
Yep, I think a valid and interesting perspective, definitely. It's all relative. I think everyone's crushed. You can see that. I mean, it's impossible not to, because we're all so connected. If somebody goes down, like a big economic block goes down, like they all are, UK, sorry, EU, China, US, all like record drops in GDP and record highs in unemployment and stuff like that. That's got to affect everyone on the planet. But you're right, very interesting point. We're not making stuff, and also the movement of goods is literally going to be very much frustrated by the lockdowns, quarantines, and stuff like that. It's not just when you stop people, you basically stop goods as well. Like I read a very interesting article about sort of maritime trade and how by putting the lockdown in, you actually prevented sailors from docking into ports simply because they would also then enter a quarantine type situation. So they were just sitting around in boats and not actually being able to disembark anywhere. And these are container ships not getting shipped, and all of this stuff is going on. So unless you went to a totally automated way of shipping stuff, which isn't the case, then a lot of things are gonna slow down. So yeah, maybe the intangible nature of the UK economy is going to help in some way. But you know what? A lot of the folks that are losing work are still very much working in the tangible economy. and it'll just affect everyone in different ways. So it's gonna be tough. And going on to the topic today, it's going to be particularly tough for recruiters because, let's face it, one of the fundamental facts of nature is that recruiters need growing businesses and we need growing economies in order for us to basically fill jobs. We need the demand in order for us to be, that's our raison d'etre. If it contracts, the recruitment industry itself has to necessarily contract. And the sad truth is we're seeing a lot of our friends, a lot of the people we know being made redundant, put on furlough and all the rest of it. And in fact, one of our guests today is one of those people actually. And I wanted to bring her on in order to get the perspective from a job seeker point of view, like what to do. So very important thing. But let's have a look at some of our guests here and see if we can bring them on. Jerry, I think I see Jerry Christman there as well. He's also going to come on at some point because I want to talk about some of the amazing projects that are going on. But firstly, let's bring on Jen Fenwick. I think that's you, Jen. Let's bring you on there. I might as well bring Christine on as well. Why not?
I just want to quickly point out about what I just said there. We've got a big international audience here. That's probably the first positive thing I've said about the UK this year. In fact, in the last 6 months, I'm completely against a lot of things that have been happening in the UK, but that might be one that's interesting.
Well, you've kind of become a UK nationalist now, haven't you? I mean, you always were at heart, let's face it. But the Brexit broke your heart, and now COVID-19's come in. You've rallied around the flag once more.
I'm a Scottish nationalist now.
Yeah. Well, I'm pleased to see it. Anyway, we've got two interesting and better people on the screen right now. So let's see who they are. Jen, how are you doing? Can you, for the people who don't know you, Jen,
I'm good.
Can you introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do?
Oh, I just can't get past the bags under my eyes. Like, oh my God. And so I'm Jen Fenwick. I am a exec coach and onboarding specialist. I have a company called Rebel Road Coaching. And really what I do is support leaders making career transitions. So support them through the challenges of navigating new roles. And I work with organizations on how to do onboarding, how to demystify onboarding, because let's face it, companies are pretty crap at onboarding employees.
They are indeed. But no, great to have you on, Jen. I'm really interested to get your views on what kind of recruiters should be doing, in these types of circumstances, which is very different. And of course, we've got Christine. How are you doing, Christine? Long time no see.
Yeah, good to see you, albeit in these circumstances, but yeah, good to see you.
Indeed. And we'll have to catch up again. I think the last time we caught up was actually having some dinner somewhere in Chinatown, wasn't it? And that was, will that ever happen again? I have no idea. Cross fingers.
If it does, can I come next time?
You can certainly come. You'd have to eat Chinese food though. So, that's the key criteria. Christine, for the people who don't know you, can you introduce yourself real quick and tell people what you do?
Of course. So my role is talent acquisition partner for the Financial Times. So global 130-year-old business. But specifically, I had an interesting role where I sit between HR, more specifically learning and development. But my role predominantly focuses on product and technology hiring. So anything to do with engineers, software developers, product, all comes under my radar. So I've been there for about 2 years now, actually. And as Hung mentioned earlier, I've been put on furlough as of last Thursday. So it's been a little bit more than a week.
Right. Interesting times. And of course, there's loads of reasons why I would want to bring you on for this, Christine, but I thought in particular this would be quite timely because it's interesting. I want to see what the psychology is when you've it's all very well leaving work of your own volition, but when it's like made a decision from outside of your control, like what was your feeling and reaction when that news was announced to you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, FT was really good at the whole situation. So everyone was actually sent home before the government mandate, and the leadership team were overly communicating like what the decisions were. Coincidentally, it was also the end of Q1, so our finance teams were also looking at budgets, and they had already flagged, like, look, this is going to happen. But the good news is there hasn't been any job cuts. There hasn't been any offers that we were sending up been rescinded. So we were able to honor all our offers, which were a really good sign. And then the way that it was communicated to us was if we took this furlough, which is until end of June, which will be reviewed on a weekly basis, depending on how it goes, it would impact job security for the rest of the business. So aside from that as well, our leadership team also took a pay cut. So they were first to say, look, we're taking a pay cut. We're going to take the first hit. And personally, I think if it continues longer and we were all asked to take pay cuts, it would be an easier pill to swallow because the leadership team did it first. So I think the fact that the leadership team did comms, well, I say communications really, really well. The first week, I guess, when the news was kind of broken to us that, our roles is hiring and hiring's now put on hold until end of October, then naturally all of the other jobs that we're doing, such as the employer branding projects, are more nice to haves. It's still important. So the business stress that's still important, but just at the moment in time, we do need to focus on revenue generating projects. So I think just because of the way the business dealt with it, I was fine. And knowing the job security aspect will be there come end of June, I was able to kind of deal with it better. But I also have a team member as well who's a coordinator, and obviously, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with going on furlough. So yeah, I think it's just one of the situations you just have to continuously communicate and be responsible for each other.
Yeah. I mean, what have you? So you've basically felt that the approach that the FT have done is meets with your approval. They've done a good job on it. I love the term over communicate because I think that's exactly what we need to be doing. It's like more information definitely is actually classic candidate experience stuff, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, remember when we're, we typically don't speak to candidates if we don't have any news. Actually, no, you need to over communicate right now, because when people are in ambiguous situations, that's when you need to amp up whatever. Even if there's no news, you say, hey, Jen, there's no news. That's in itself news. And that's what you need to know. So that's great stuff. Okay. One more question before we kind of throw it a little bit around the room here. But from your side, Christine, I know there's security there, job security in the business, at least more so than other circumstances. But have you kind of looked at what your own behavior would be outside of FT? I mean, what kind of things have you been doing just to increase the level of income security that you might have?
Yeah, of course. So I guess you know me for a while, Hung, but for those who don't, I'm initially from Hong Kong, so I came here, did my master's, and I wasn't really meant to stay here. And I ended up working for a recruitment agency, and they couldn't sponsor my visa. So at the same time, I pitched like this app idea I had, and I managed to land the Tier 1 entrepreneur visa, which bought me more time to stay in the country. So I think as a result of that, I've always been interested in product. You mentioned chatbots earlier. I dipped my toes into the chatbot world as well. So in a way, I think I was able to also utilize that in all of my jobs since. So case example at the FT, I'm building I built a product and technology microsite. So people go to the FT to read the FT, but people don't go to the FT to apply for a job. So we kind of spun out a different site that showcases our culture and people can express an interest in a job. So that I was able to utilize my product management skills. So coming out, and especially in this situation where I don't really have a job to go to, and I think a lot of my work has been really defined by work. So this has been a bit challenging in that sense. But the first week I just identified, okay, what are the different projects I've always wanted to work on? And I, being a project management geek, laid out a Trello board, and I mapped out my 4 key pillars, which is around self-development. So what courses do I want to study? What books do I want to read? Personal finance. I've never got my head around my finances. Second part would be, volunteering and just helping out friends. Reached out to some of my buddies who are startup founders to ask if there's anything they want help with, which they do. And then thirdly, business plan. So I've got a couple of really hairy ideas I've got in the background. So this is a perfect time to be able to test product market fit. And last but not least, I think health as well, like focusing on, running, which I don't normally do, but getting myself out there and just doing stuff I don't normally get to do. So identifying those key pillars and using this time to help align back into those goals. So I'm hoping whatever I learn in this period, I'll be able to bring back to work, whether it's still the FT or something else.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love those comments. I don't know what you two think, but ultimately, particularly I like the idea of making the offer to help. I wrote something really throwaway the other week, but it seemed to resonate to a lot of people to say, when you need help yourself, it actually is good therapy to go and try and help other people.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it's that loss of sense of value that you have. We're all workers. I don't see anybody being lazy. No one's putting their feet up. But once we've had this taken away from us, we can feel a loss of sense of value, because what the hell do we do now? But if you're able to go and help someone or just offer the support, suddenly that becomes a therapy, and it shifts your mindset to an action orientation, which I think is really useful. Because right now, the worst thing you can do is stew and keep stewing.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wonder whether you got any thoughts on that.
Oh, sorry. So I think I loved your point about looking at your health and well-being, because I think a lot of the people that I'm speaking to at the moment, I think when we go through big change or we're thrown into kind of the unknown, that it's easy for people to kind of fall into that kind of fear zone, so kind of the anxiety, the worries, we forget about what we're awesome at doing. We forget about all the good stuff and looking at things from an opportunity. And often so much of our identity is attached to work. So when work's not working, then everything feels wrong. So I think it's such an important thing to actually take this opportunity, whether you are going to be out of work, whether you're being furloughed, whether you are still really busy, to actually just take this opportunity to get your head right, to focus on your health and well-being, because no matter what decision you make from here, it's got to start with getting your head in the right zone, so that you can make good decisions. But also the point around asking who you can help, I always think that I spent 15, 16 years in talent acquisition. I headed up a global team. And I think wherever we had success or whenever we had quiet moments, if we asked the business, what are the organizational challenges, issues, problems, and how can we help solve them? That was a really great place to start to continue to add value. And what I love about recruiters and talent acquisition folk is that there's so much more, they have so many more skills than just doing the day job. And I think they're undervalued and sometimes they underestimate the value that they can bring to organizations. I worked for a big pharma company, GSK, a number of years ago, and we were going to put out a consultancy project to one of the top consultancies out in the US. And I mean, they, consultancies charge like crazy money, but actually, we were quite quiet. We had nothing going on at the time, so I was just like, let us take a look at it. It was actually looking at kind of resourcing and looking at competitor information out in the US. And my recruitment team did the project in a few weeks and saved like a shitload of money. So, so I think, so there's loads of cool stuff from what you were saying. So, yeah.
You know what? This aligns with what John Vlastelica was saying last week, wasn't it, Adam? When we were talking about, what recruiters should be doing. It's like, okay, you got to align hard with the business, number one. Because if you're still in the business, you've got to really identify what is important to the business right now and do that stuff. Because you might have your pet projects, so to speak, but to pursue them, that if they're misaligned with the current business need, then that's going to be chopped out. And unfortunately, that may mean a lot of things that were previously high priority. But of course, with COVID-19, there is a reprioritization of what it is. So it was super interesting to witness that kind of mentality. On regards to people who've already been moved out of the business, though, let's say we're in that situation. There's recruiters out here watching and listening to this show, and they're thinking, okay, great, I'm out of work, but I need to find a job. What kind of advice does anybody have here?
I can go first. First thing is go and read the newspaper and work out which industries are growing. Really, really simple one. If you've been in an industry that's shrinking, like in the UK, manufacturing, go and take a look at what are the businesses that have been getting investment, and what are the industries which are expecting to grow in the next 10 years. They're the ones that are going to be hiring people. They're the ones that are going to need your skills. So that's my starter for 10. In particular, of course, go and look at things like biotech, the newspaper. Sorry, maybe don't look at the newspaper. Look at FT Online. Absolutely. FT.com is where you get that information, Jerry. Very good point. That's my very first comment is go and look at the companies that have been raising money and go and look at the industries where there's growth happening.
On that note, very quickly, I just shared the newsletter archive there. The reason why you should go into there is because basically there was a slide deck by a lady called Steph Smith that I promoted, I think, a week or two ago. I can't remember when it was. There was a particular slide in there that I thought was really interesting, which is essentially a map as to where VC investment was currently going, which sectors, if you like. And they were all sectors that you can anticipate already going to be growing, but of course they're going to just be shooting up after this. We're talking cybersecurity, cloud services, anything to do with distributed working, anything to do with accelerated processes where there's not an in-person presence. Have a think of the fact that, okay, this lockdown might sort of last for X amount of time. We might go back to it. There'll be this kind of oscillation in and out. Anything what kind of requires an in-person presence probably is not going to be a smart place to be. But there'll be, if you like, an automated or a non-in-person alternative to that. So for instance, you might think farming obviously going to be hammered, but what's going to happen there is that a lot of the fruit picking is going to be now done by robotics. So business building robots will obviously need to be recruiting folks. So you got to think of those types of mentalities. By the way, thank you, Lee Candiotti. Keep sending and sharing that thing. Angel List, Financial Times, that type of information, critical. Crunchbase. Use the stuff that startup founders use the stuff that bankers use, if you like, and start tracking those trends. Okay, what else?
The simple. Just really quickly, the simple one. I was getting into just really quickly. The simple one is quite clearly anything that's tech, anything that's science, any STEM industries. That's where to go.
Yep, cool. Anybody else? Any ideas? We need practical steps for recruiters right now.
I think I'll jump in. I've been made redundant, I think, twice over probably throughout my career. So I've done it the right way and I've done it the wrong way. So I think the wrong way was being made redundant and jumping into a role, like, again, thinking, holy shit, I'm not gonna, who's gonna hire me, and forgetting that I had an awesome track record, forgetting to leverage my network, forgetting to actually take time to work out actually what I wanted. I kind of fell into that, that anxiety mindset, and then I made the wrong decisions, jumped into a company with a crazy boss and left quite quickly. But there's a right way to do it, and I think that's just take a breath, so get your head in the right place, and then think strategically, so take a step back, take half a day, take a day, and to look at, what is it that you actually, what do you want to do? In an ideal world, forget that you've been made redundant. In an ideal world, what do you want to do next? Think about what are you awesome at? What do you love doing? What do you want to do more? What type of organizations do you want to work for? What type of organizations, industries are actually hiring? And Adam, I work in STEM, I've worked in STEM organizations, for forever. And again, most of them are still, maybe they're not hiring so rapidly, but most of the recruiters I know in talent acquisition teams are still ticking away, and some of them are still hiring. So I think that's it. So think strategically. Your industry. You might. Your company might be restructuring, might be making redundancies, but there's other growth industries. So I think that's it. I think you do need to really think strategically. And again, what do you want to do? So this is an opportunity. Do you want your next move to be into another recruitment TA team, or do you want to use your awesome transferable skills and do something different? Do you want to take this as an opportunity to go freelance? Because there's definitely opportunities. I've done a lot of career coaching over the years. There's definitely people out there who need career support right now. And as recruiters, you spend day in, day out giving awesome advice. How can you leverage that? Or do you want to do something totally different into a whole new function? One of my mentors and an awesome leader, that she's now global head of business development for a clinical company. She was a recruitment manager. had awesome BD. She was really awesome at BD, and so so she moved into a business development role in a totally different industry. You probably know.
I know her. I know who you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just linking up those two things. What you said, Jen, about making use of your skills, and what Christine said about or Hung said about helping other people is a good way of actually providing advice. Giving free advice. Go and run some workshops online.
Yeah.
Anybody that's looking for a job, get online. I've been in recruitment for 5 years, and I'm going to give you 10 things that I think you should do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Go and do that. Go and do it, and well, you can't do it in the street because of social distancing, but otherwise you stand with a megaphone in the street and do it. But absolutely, host online sessions for friends and family, for anybody you know.
And it doesn't have to be free.
Can I just say one thing right here? And as an example of this happening, I think tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow, but next week, Martin Redston, who was basically in a classic scenario where he was like in process and then got his offer rescinded. And he worked in chatbot world. We know Martin, of course. He works as a BDM for a bunch of chatbots. But he's taking exactly that option. He's saying, I'm going to do a webinar. I'm going to teach people how chatbots work. He's basically going to unpack a lot of these things, but at the same time showcase his knowledge and skills. So he's really smart. He's not just sitting there doing one-to-one applications to all of these jobs out there. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Visible job out there is going to be overloaded with applicants. So knocking on the front door probably is not the best way to go about things right now. You should do it, but that should not be your only channel. What he's doing is trying to draw attention to himself by saying, hey, I'm going to do, I know this is what I'm going to trade in. This is my knowledge. I'm going to do a webinar on it. It's for free. Go and watch it. And I'm thinking, smart thinking,
Yeah. Definitely. I think that, I love that. But I think, again, some of the stuff you don't even need to do for free. There's ways of making money. What knowledge do you have that people need that you could charge £10, and then how many people, you get 100 people on a 1 hour session, and there you go, so, and you do that. So there's ways of using your knowledge and making money from it in the interim.
You know what? I did say do it for free, but I wasn't even sure whether Martin was charging for that. So he may well be like banging people for like a bit of cash. Who knows, Martin?
Why not?
Why not? Indeed. Okay. This is great. By the way, I've just shared into the chat stream on Crowdcast there. Basically a taxonomy that Nesta and our friends at Profiler put together. I think it's a really useful website. It basically helps everyone understand your related skills. So Jen, you were talking about potentially making a career transition. You know what? There's probably a lot of recruiters that have been forever recruiters. I was a forever recruiter. Didn't do anything other than recruiting. So I had no clue what other opportunities are out there. But I think what these guys have done is basically map it against other jobs that have comparable skills. And then that might just spark some ideas, because sometimes we don't know. Especially, one of the features of recruiting, I think, be it agency or in-house, is that it's so intense that you never get the mind space to think more broadly. If there's 24 hours in a day in the recruiting world, you'd use 24 hours. There's no gaps. So this period, I think, really helps you have those gaps. And that tool, I think, someone else should just jump on that and maybe make some more of it. But I thought it was a really useful way to just interrogate what's available and learn what skills are potentially transferable.
Linking that to something that you said earlier, and that Jen said, which was about identify what do I actually really love doing. Take this as an opportunity to take stock, press reset, and work out what's best for you next. Not what do I need to jump into. So, like in recruitment, I posted today on LinkedIn and Facebook that one thing that gives me nightmares is the concept of a 360-degree recruiter. So the skill set is just so varied. If you're currently a 360-degree recruiter, my advice is work out which bits you don't enjoy, work out which bits you enjoy, and go and pitch yourself to spend your full-time day for your next job doing the bits you enjoy. If you love sourcing, be a sourcer. If you love writing adverts and doing the talent attraction bit, go and try and get into recruitment marketing. If you love the research bit, try and get into talent intelligence. These jobs all exist. You might not know about them yet, but go and work them out. If you, whatever the thing you enjoy most about recruitment is, and you want to focus on doing that, there's jobs that do that. And in terms of pitching yourself, go and find those companies that have just raised 10 million quid. Pitch yourself to the CEO right now. I'm going to come and be your head of talent. You weren't planning to hire this role, but you should, and here's why I should do it. Go and pitch yourself to the HR director. Go and be assertive. Go and do what you would do to go and get that role on. Instead of going and getting the role on, get yourself in for it.
You know what? I think that's a brilliant idea, because it also it's a demonstration of your skill set as well. I mean, like, one of the things that I would look for if I was hiring a recruiter, I would look for this boldness. I would look for the ability to open a door. I would look for imagination, research skills. So yeah, go and speculative application. This is not just sending your CV in. It's like, how can you construct a message that would trigger a conversation with a busy person? I think that's something absolutely.
Yeah,
don't turn up on their front door though, because if you do that, you'll end up staying at Her Majesty's pleasure.
Yeah, you'd be like having a visit from the police, like Farage did this morning.
One thing about that as well is, don't forget to also demonstrate how much cost saving that you will bring. Don't forget, talent acquisition is a cost saving function. So, maybe have a look at all the roles that they're hiring for and say, if you hire for all these roles directly, that's how much money you'll be saving. So business minded.
Love it. Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
But stop applying for jobs that are, because I can't remember my very first recruiter job, back in the Stone Age was an application online, with the CV, but all my jobs after that were through my network, through speaking to people, through identifying, I wanted to work for a top pharma company, so I narrowed it down to three pharma companies who had global headquarters in the UK, and I targeted all their people on LinkedIn, set up conversations, ended up with interviewing with two, got one, so just like being bold, and none of the jobs that I was speaking to them about were actually advertised online. So, so just need to, it's so much about putting yourself out there and speaking to the right person and the right timing, identifying what problems they are, what their growth, what their plans are, and how you can be a solution. And it's amazing what happens.
You know what? This is just application of what we know to do, isn't it? I mean, it's a classic case of we've got to walk the talk. When we're recruiting candidates, we're doing a lot of why are we not thinking about like pipelining? Why are we not thinking about funneling? Why we're not thinking about doing all of these things for our own job search? It's we shouldn't just be normal job seekers. We should actually be expert at this. Even though the market is tough, there's a lot of tools that we've used, tools being process tools, but also tech tools that we could use that could really be useful. Let's keep moving on because time is flying by, I notice. Let's give like short-term tactical stuff, a bit of strategy that we've talked about. What about some immediate wins that people are there places to go that you would recommend recruiters should go? Is there online places they should visit? Where should they hang out? Are there sites that are publishing jobs right now? Like what should recruiters be doing right now, like today?
Yeah, I can give that a go. So there's a couple of websites, UK based. I think they might be global, but stillhiring.io. There's a lot of like kind of different curated lists. So I know Work and Startups have recently launched like a new, let's say, platform for people who've been put on furlough, so people can exchange their skill sets. So super early stage startup founders, for example, who can't necessarily afford to pay for an actual employee, they'll go on there and they can exchange the skill set. So I think that's always a good first step. Talent-wise, obviously, we've got specific talent communities. I guess every global region will have its own, but I found even just reaching out on LinkedIn, not even just like people in the talent world, but also like suppliers, people that you work with, right? Like it could be platforms, it could be agency partners. Like I found the first week, loads of people just emailed me and said, "Hey, Christine, are you still hiring? Can I work with you guys?" I'm like, we're not hiring, and I've since been put on furlough. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So the conversation actually kind of turned, and that's quite interesting. But I think just really like a lot of people you already speak to. Like we're recruiters, we talk to a lot of people on a day-to-day basis, right? That's the quickest win. Just reaching out to people that you work with in your own network.
Yeah,
Jen was absolutely right about work your network. Well, Christine just said as well. Work your network and be relentless. This is probably a full-time job. Doing it. Export everybody you got connected on LinkedIn. Go through them with a fine-tooth comb, and don't discriminate too much. Work out who's a possibility, and then pitch them all something.
Yeah.
Or
Cast the net wide.
Or even just connect. I mean, sometimes it's like a lot of the connections that we do have, contacts we do have, we've kind of let fallow simply because we haven't had the time or whatnot. Oftentimes, the best way to connect with people is not to necessarily make a request at that point, but simply to offer advice. Actually, is a classic way to do it. So even if you're put on furlough, you're a recruitment expert, should be a job search expert. That's a classic opportunity for you to offer your advice to other people that may in fact have job opportunities for you in future. As you found out, Christine, when you're interacting with a lot of these vendors and people in the startup world, there's a lot of demand for our skills and knowledge, even though right now there's not maybe the revenue or the money for it. But it could potentially be another way to refresh and restart your career. So restart your relationship with these folks that can really move it on. Okay, friends, we are kind of moving towards the end of this. I need to bring on Jerry Crispin at the very end. So final word, Jess and Christine. What would an advice to a young person who's just been made redundant this week? What should they be doing over the weekend or on Monday? Jen, we'll go to you.
Okay, yeah. So first of all, take a moment before you start taking any action. Take a moment to get a blank piece of paper and sit down and work out actually what do you want. What do you actually want? You know, what organizations, what industries, what type of role, what do you want to be doing? Because then when you start to make that into a bit of a plan and make a bit of a strategy to target those companies and to network with those people, you are actually clear on what you want. Because if you can have a clear pitch or a narrative, or that elevator, chat around what you can bring to the table, but actually what you want, then people can actually help you. So that person you're speaking to, on LinkedIn or, over the phone, that person, if you can be clear on what you can bring to the table and what you want, then they might not be the right person, but they might speak to the right person. So you need to have your messaging quite clear. So be bold. Like don't be afraid to be bold and actually lay it on the table as to what you really want. Because
I think that's really, really valid. It's almost this intrinsic motivation piece, isn't it, Jen? You've got to just be clear on what you really want, because it's going to help you all the way through, from your motivation, your marketing, your messaging, your connection, your authenticity, everything like that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So just, as a recruiter, remember when you have candidates and you're speaking to a candidate and you say to the candidate, why are you interested in working here, or what type of job do you want? And if they say, oh, I just want a job, or then you're like, you're never going to remember that person, and you can't really help that person. So you need to work on that mindset. What advice would you be giving to your candidates, and just listen to your own advice, because as a recruiter, you are sitting on a gold mine of knowledge and insights and and advice. You need to start taking it yourself.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. How about you, Christine? What's your advice to this person who, maybe getting the bad news today and needs to think about it this weekend and first action Monday?
Also very similar to Jen's. I think, not to get philosophical here, but really it's time to focus on yourself. Like, when are we ever going to get this time? Because, I have massive FOMO means fear of missing out. And actually, there's nothing going on out there for me to get FOMO at the moment. So it's actually like, just enjoy this time, just nourish yourself, figure out what is it that you actually want to focus on. Don't burn or stress yourself out. I think that's like the last thing you want to do in this situation, right? Because you don't want to burn out over anxiety or stress that, you're being laid off. So really focus on what you want, what's your vision, what's your goal. And then once you kind of get there, again, like what Jen was saying, you'll be able to like craft the right messages and reach out to the right people. Because at the same time, if you're reaching out to people, you don't know what you want. No one can help you apart from yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, just really figure out what you want, hone in the right skills, even if it's just reading, picking up a book, speaking to people, see how you can add value. And really, I think just staying positive amidst all of this. And, going back to what I just said, like the world is literally on standstill. So there's nothing going on that we're missing out on. So just focus on you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, I would recommend everyone follow these two. I've just shared their LinkedIn's actually earlier today, but I'll do that later on when I push the email out as a follow-up. So Jen Fenwick, thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful weekend. Oh my goodness, that is an enormous
Leffy's a good choice. Listen, I just got to say,
I've got newborn twins, so I deserve this.
Oh,
I was just about to say,
congratulations.
That's what I was about to say. Big congratulations.
Amazing news. And by the way, that's a huge bottle of Liffey. I hope it's going to be okay, because that would knock me out if I drank all of that.
No. I'll share it.
6.6%, I think. Yeah.
Great to see you, Jen. And Christine, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All your projects. Let's keep talking offline. I definitely want this roast delivery thing that you were talking about. That needs to be resolved. So send me some info on that.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Okay, have a good weekend, you too.
Bye. Bye.
I'm just going to add one last thing to the sort of tactical. What do you need to do? Because we didn't quite cover it.
No.
You need to get on social media, and you need to write your blogs. You need to do your blogs and your vlogs, and you need to start discussions, and you need to become known to the people you need to become known to. You need to use social media to lead with value. You talked about leading with value, providing advice, being useful. You can get your message to a lot more people if you're doing it, using social media posts and things like that.
Yeah, and there is the the one and only Jerry Crispin. Jerry, how are you doing?
So I'm doing fine, but I got to tell you, this is the first time that you, Hung, and Adam, you talk too much. Those two provided a master class on what you could be doing, and they were. There were bookends. One's a coach and one is on furlough. They were fantastic. I wanted more of them, not you.
Let's bring it back. We got to go, man.
You could cut them. You could cut you out, put them in, and they could sell that.
Can I just say, Jerry?
I would buy it.
Adam actually messaged me to say, "Hey, listen, I'm happy to step down if Jerry comes on." And I'm thinking, man, we should have both stepped down and kept Jerry on, and then get those two back in.
Man,
but
you should just ask them questions, because they were great.
They were great.
They were
We'll
great.
get Jen and Christine back on, no doubt. They were awesome. But Jerry, thanks for dropping by the way. I wanted to just chat with you because there's all kinds of other things that we can do as well. And of course, one of the main things is can recruiters collaborate in such a way to really help each other right now? And of course, I've been aware of your project, and I wanted to get you on to talk a little bit about it. Tell us about recruiting recruiters, man. What's all this about?
If we could only say it properly, I can't. But recruiters.com is just one of many things that are out there. Actually, Adam has Candidate ID, and Tello has something, Accenture has something. We, in fact, I think it was Christine that talked about a whole series of different kinds of sites, et cetera, that are out there. We have on Recruiters, recruiters.com, there's a directory down at the bottom, and we've got about 30 different links to other places that recruiters could be going to find jobs or finding recruiters if they're hiring them. So what's different about what we tried to do from a job point of view, it really came from employers. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, I started hearing the rumors from large recruiters who were saying, I can't publicly say it, but within 3-4 days, we're going to lay off 50,000 people, or we're going to lay off 100,000 people, or we're going to whatever. And that started adding up to some very big numbers. And we're going, holy cow, it's all going to come crashing down. What could we do? And we realized that there were so many different technology organizations that were setting up their own, quote, pay it forward kind of tool, that we were not going to get the entire industry to kind of collaborate all at once on a single kind of approach. That wasn't going to happen. So narrowing that down to the people that we know best, which are recruiters, you know, we should be taking care of our own. And somebody came up with recruiters, recruiting recruiters, and it just stuck. It said, that is just the dumbest statement right there that, you know, you can't not remember it. And so what can we do there? And what the employers were saying is that we're not going to recommend to the people we furlough. And by the way, there's no definition for furlough. It's not just pay or benefits or anything. It really implies that the employer wants you back. And they were already beginning to say, well, what kind of relationship am I going to have with the people that I've furloughed? How do I over communicate? That was one of the things Christine was talking about. How do I communicate with folks that no longer are working with me, at least temporarily? And I want to help them by giving them something. But I want to know that they're going to be treated well where they go. And that started a whole different set of conversations. So the unique thing about recruiters recruiting recruiters is that the employers who are participating, there's about 300 now, have to abide by a code of conduct. And the code of conduct is the minimal bar that is acceptable in the treatment of a candidate. And we agreed that on 3 things, because we can measure them: setting expectations, delivering on expectations, and no black hole. And we will engage each of the candidates who participate on recruiters recruiting recruiters to out, if you will, the companies that they touched or that touched them, and whether or not those 3 things occurred. And if they don't, then they'll get a call, probably from me. And if they can't answer it positively, then we remove them from the platform. But I did want to shame them publicly, but we're not going to do it.
No, let's explain very quickly what this is. So essentially, it's a website. It is a place for recruiters to find job opportunities for themselves. And the jobs are posted by partner businesses that have those recruiter vacancies.
Correct. So we're going to scrape those websites. So that limits companies who have career websites for jobs that they're hiring for themselves. So you know, it's not for every employer out there, but the fact is, those employers that make that commitment to meeting those 3 things, that code of conduct, and who are hiring recruiters for themselves, can participate. And
so this is perfect, because it's perfect because ultimately there's an element of quality control in the sense that, obviously, I mean, it goes back to what we've been talking about for a long time. You need to have a fully fledged web presence in any case. Like if you've been getting away with not having that, then now is, you know, that problem is now compounding that you've not solved that. So,
and I want to really make a point, though, that this is a consortium of a lot of organizations that came together in order to support that, and we still want more organizations to join the consortium by telling their clients, who might be employers, that this exists and it's one of many places that they could use. So just as we're listing links to other places recruiters should use in addition to recruiters recruiting recruiters, we believe that there's an awful lot of staffing organizations, consulting organizations, groups that have large networks like you that can be part of the consortium. And so we want to acknowledge them in terms of supporting a concept that involves treating people well, and especially when it's our own.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we all know that these these times are not going to go. It's going to be a very tough period for a long period of time for a lot of us. So these types of initiatives, I think, are fantastic. Let's everyone who basically, if you're a recruiter that's potentially on furlough or potentially being made redundant, you should definitely check this site out. And in fact, if you're a business that is recruiting recruiters, you should go ahead and register. I think it's simply the link is on the chat stream there. It'll also be shared in email. I'll push out in a bit. So this is the way to do it. We all need to pull together on this. Okay, folks, we are out of time. Jerry, great to get you on even for a short period. Always great to see you, man. And yeah, you take care of yourself. Everybody, thanks for watching on all of the streams that you've been paying attention to. Really appreciate it, especially for the folks who are on bank holiday. So we'll be back next week. We're talking recruiter communities. We'll have Emma Mirrington and James Osborne with us for that. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you check it out. This is me signing out, and thank you everybody for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.